Hey everybody, Tyler Engelbert's here coming at you with another video for Viking Media. So, of course, in today's Canadian political news, the big topic of discussion is the Compact for Migration. Well, last night we saw Andrew Scheer and the Conservative Party finally denounce the Compact for Migration and, offer to introduce some debate in the House of Commons. And it's kind of funny. I'm glad that they're on board with this. 100%. I'm glad. I'm super happy that it's another political party that's got behind the fight for Canadian sovereignty and for Canada to make its own decisions in regards to foreign policy, immigration policy, etc. But it's just there's an interesting process that got the Conservative Party to this point, and it's just interesting going through their mental gymnastics and their stances on all this before finally being pushed hard enough by Canadians to denounce the compact. And we kind of saw step one of the Conservative plan for the compact on migration was to not talk about it at all. And I thought that was a little bit peculiar, but Canadians hadn't made it evident that it was such a big deal for us at that point. So that was when we saw Maxime Bernier adamantly step out against it. He had a series of tweets about it, I believe, on November 2nd, stating that it's terrible for Canada, it's a forfeiture of our sovereignty, and a whole bunch more. I'll post a link in the description to that tweet chain. And then so it was left. The Conservatives were left ignoring the Compact for Migration, and it didn't get raised a bunch. And there was starting. I've posted videos about it before, and you could just see every time Andrew Scheer would speak live, where there was questions, brought up to him. Every third or every second question was about the Compact for Migration. It was about the UN, etc., etc. And then, so finally, I guess they caved to the pressure and they started looking into it. And step two of their strategy on dealing with the Compact for Migration and the public backlash pushing them to do something about it was that they would state that it's non-binding. Michelle Rempel came out, did a video, and while she expressed that she wasn't totally on board with it, she didn't express that Canada should be adamantly rejecting it. She just said it's non-binding, we'll deal with it, it's not a big deal. And then step three of their step three of their process in dealing with this was to study it. They had released that, okay, Canadians are upset about this, we'll study it, we'll study the impact, and that was very, very short-lived. I believe it was a matter of days between Michelle Rempel saying that it's non-binding and then Scheer coming out and stating that they denounced it. So it was ignore. Step one was ignore. Step two was state that it's non-binding, so it doesn't really matter. So they were trying to deflate. So it was ignore, deflate, study, and then finally denounce. And that's where we're at now. As of last night, it's been a party-wide denouncement of this that I've seen. With the exception of some people in the conservative circles. Can't quite remember his name. Stephen Harper's immigration minister has the former immigration minister for the Conservative Party under Stephen Harper has come out and totally reiterated that it's non-binding and it's not actually forfeiting sovereignty. But we get into some pretty interesting things as far as how binding it really is. And the biggest problem with this Compact for Migration is it can be cited in legal battles and stuff like that. And there's, I'm going to read something here. I just got to find it real quick on my phone. Probably should have had this ready. The guy's name was Chris Alexander, the former immigration minister. Anyways, I'm going to get back to what I was looking for here. A very interesting excerpt from the Compact for Migration in regards to national sovereignty. Now, it reads as follows. National sovereignty. The Global Compact reaffirms the sovereign right of the state. I'll start again. The Global Compact reaffirms the sovereign right of states to determine their national migration policy and their prerogative to govern migration within their jurisdiction in conformity with international law. And that's the biggest thing. There is so many references to this in regards to national law and with respect to national law and all that in this migrant compact, and that's where it becomes very troubling, because once a country signs on to this, they're bound by international law, which is not something that I think should rule us as Canadians. We keep going towards more government, bigger government. I think if you've watched my other videos, you know my stance on this. A smaller government is better, less involvement in our lives. So now, and we keep detaching government. Government starts at a municipal level with councillors and mayors, and then it goes to a provincial level, it goes to a federal level, and now it's going to a global level. So we keep losing connection to the people that govern us with distance, accessibility, and that kind of thing. So I think another step, another level of detachment from the people that govern us is not good for Canadians. It's not good for our individual freedoms. It's not good for liberty. I really like what Maxime Bernier is saying in giving the jurisdiction on a lot of things back to the provinces, especially in regards to healthcare and that kind of thing. When we're connected to our lawmakers, they're more accountable. When they live just down the street, they're a little bit more hesitant to piss off the population, because we can just go knock on their door. We can cause a big stink. They're accountable to the community. They're accountable to the people that they interact with. And then we get to a provincial level, it's another disconnect. We get to the federal level, our federal politicians are not accessible at all. They never respond to emails. It's ridiculous. And then so to take that and put that on steroids, to make that even more inaccessible by forfeiting our power to a global level of government, it's another level of disconnect. It's less accountability. And of course, you can only be held accountable. The more people that you represent, the less accountable you can be to all their individual voices. And it's just to take that and add another level of disconnect is unfortunate. I'm very, very glad that the Conservative Party has come out and finally denounced the compact migration, or the migration compact, and it's a step in the right direction. It's very much appreciated. A lot of people are being very critical, especially in the PPC camp, of Scheer and Michelle, myself included. And I think we just have to be critical in the right aspects. We have to be critical on their timing. We have to be critical of why did they wait, and I think it's a valid question that they should be answering. And another thing that I have not seen them do is, there's a petition. I forget who created the petition, but it's sponsored by Maxime Bernier, and it's been circulating for quite some time, a couple months, I believe. And the Conservative Party has yet to express support for it. They have to. I think if they really want people to believe that they're against this migration compact, they should be doing things like supporting petitions, and they're not doing that. And I think it has a lot to do with who sponsored it. And I think it's time that we put these petty party differences aside and supported each other's good policies. I support the PPC, but I will give the CPC credit when it's due. When the Conservative Party does something right, as I think that they just did, I will praise them for it. Thank you, Andrew Scheer. Thank you, Michelle Rempel. Thank you for standing up for Canadians and standing against the removal of our sovereignty. And that's where I'm at. But for the Conservatives to not endorse this petition just because of who sponsored it, I understand that there's diplomacy and they want to get elected, and feeding the enemy, I guess, if you want to call Maxime Bernier the CPC's enemy. Feeding the enemy is not good for their image. But this is about more than an image. This is about more than politics. This is about sovereignty. This is about our nationality. This is about Canada. This is about Canadians. So let's get it done. It's time. It's time that they supported this petition. And if you haven't seen the petition, if you haven't signed it, I'll put a link in the description. And that's kind of where I'm at with this whole compact thing. It's terrible. And another thing, so the Conservative Party finally comes out and denounces this compact, and now the people against them, or pro-migration compact, for whatever reason, it doesn't benefit Canada in any way, I don't think, other than globalists are telling people that it does. But these people that they're back to the non-binding thing. These people in disagreement of the compact, or people in agreement of the compact, they're back to this non-binding thing, and they say, "Oh well, it's non-binding, and you guys are using rebel media rhetoric and blah blah blah," and it's silly. It doesn't matter if it's binding or not, which they're like to dismiss it as non-binding in the sense that it is inconsequential is very irresponsible. But then to go on and promote it on the basis of it being non-binding, there's no train of thought there. There's no substance. If it's non-binding, what's the point? And there is more implications than just it being non-binding. It's weird to see the Liberals pushing this, and then when people disagree with it, they say, "Oh well, it's non-binding." It doesn't make any sense. It's sneaky. It's sneaky is what it is, and there's an underlying agenda, and they're trying to sneak it in as non-binding, and then it makes a whole bunch of other non-binding things come together, and it just doesn't work out well for Canadians. It works out well for globalism, mass migration, this whole one world thing, new world agenda 2030, and all this stuff. That's another thing. I'll get into Agenda 2030, the UN Agenda 2030 in another video, but that was signed onto under the Harper government, and that set the entire basis for this compact for migration. I'm getting a little bit down a rabbit hole here. I'll elaborate in the future, but anyways, compact for migration, bad. Conservative Party, thank you for finally coming around and denouncing it. I'll just say this to all the conservative supporters out there that are finally celebrating this triumph, and I do see it as a triumph of the party coming over to denounce this migration. Where were you when Bernier was doing it 6 weeks ago, or 5 weeks ago, well over a month ago? And why aren't you holding your party accountable for sitting there and laughing at Bernier in the House of Commons while he was saying what Scheer is saying, at the beginning of November? He asked Trudeau not to sign on to this compact, and both sides of the House laughed at him, and it's crazy. I know I say that a lot. It's crazy, but we're at that point in politics where I just don't know what else to say. It's disheartening. It's discouraging. It's crazy. It's ludicrous. It's lunatic. It's breathe. It's just we're getting to a point where people are fired up, and they should be fired up. But it's terrible that our politicians are allowing the policy to come in front of us that fires us up. This should have been batted down. This should have been gone months ago. There should have been a denouncement of the UN years ago. I'm hard on the UN, and I am, and I believe that it's justified. But the UN wasn't always as terrible as it is. I don't know what else to say about that. The UN has gone to a place that I can't support, that a lot of Canadians can't support. And we need to stand behind strong politicians that aren't waiting and for public backlash to stand up for Canada. That's how I see this happen. Bernier stood up on principle, on conviction, and he stood up on those things and got zero traction. And now, a month later, Scheer stands up strictly because of public backlash and is celebrated for it. That's not a reflection of Canadians. That's a reflection of our political system. And it's a reflection on the Conservative Party. It's a reflection on the Liberal Party. It's a reflection on Canadian politics as a whole. We need to be supporting, as voters, we absolutely need to be supporting principle and conviction, and not celebrating a politician that fails to stand on something until there's huge public backlash. Because when it takes a politician to experience heavy backlash before supporting or denouncing something, it very, very much shows their lack of being in touch with the Canadian population, with Canadian voters, with their electorate. We need politicians that know what we want without us having to tell them every turn, at every turn. That's we need politicians that beliefs align with our own, so that we're not a week away from Justin Trudeau signing one of the most detrimental pieces of policy to Canada in decades before the opposition stands out against it. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I'll say it again. It's crazy. So with that, I'll leave you guys. And, we're coming up on election. Get out there and vote, because if you aren't willing to stand up for what you believe in with a vote, don't expect anybody else to. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one.